Thank you very much. Minister, naturally enough, I'm today speaking about the very tough week that people in North Louth, the Cooley Peninsula and certain parts of Dundalk had last week. And I want to first start off by commending your ministerial colleagues, Minister Patrick O'Donovan and Minister Heather Humphreys. Both ministers were on the phone to me straight away. Minister Humphreys promised that the humanitarian assistance scheme would be opened straight away. Minister O'Donovan promised that he would come to County Louth as soon as possible and would carry out a full report with the local authority as to why this happened and why it won't happen in the future. And indeed, Minister Coveney ensured that the business support scheme was opened as well to help affected businesses. And I think I just want to put it on the record that that was really important, the quick response that the government had. We have set aside a substantial amount of money for these schemes, but the important thing is we have not allowed bureaucracy to get in the middle of it. We have not allowed form filling in to slow down the process. The Community Welfare Officer in particular was excellent in making sure that that money got to people straight away and people that needed it. But what I want to talk about is how we can ensure why this happened and how we can ensure why it won't happen in the future. And let's start with Carlingford, for example. Trinity Close and Abbey Court were two of the worst affected states. All of the homes flooded. People who have built their lives the last 10 or 20 years towards their home, and all of that hard work and effort all over those years just wiped out after a night of flooding. But the issue was, and again I came across this time and time again throughout the Cooley Peninsula, the water had nowhere to go because the drains were blocked. The culverts weren't being maintained. So while you can never negate for nature, you can try and mitigate it, you can try and minimise it with proper infrastructure being looked after. And that has to fall on the local authority to make sure that drains and culverts are clear. Because when this type of flash flooding happens with water coming down off a mountain and the water has nowhere to go because the drains aren't being cleared, that's something that's really frustrating for a lot of people. The other issue at Trinity Close is right behind it, there's a wooded area called the Manse. And in recent years, a lot of trees have been cut down, a lot of hedgerows in that area have been cut down, and they were natural flood barriers. And indeed, a stream was completely diverted, a man-made diversion, and that stream was diverted right into the path of the 10 to 12 houses in Trinity Close. So again, that's something that's really concerning. When we look across at other parts of North Louth, we have seen some roads completely wiped away. The Deer Park Road in Ravensdale, the bridge there doesn't even exist anymore. Further up in Ravensdale and Ballymakellet, where you had a stream coming off, it's akin to a mudslide. So many homes and gardens absolutely destroyed. And again, what I would say is that I have to be considerate of the response of the local authority in these situations. And I would ask questions to say, why weren't the civil defence called in at one stage? Why weren't the army called in at one stage to help with sandbags? Over 2,000 to 3,000 sandbags were provided to people right throughout the Cooley Peninsula to try and help with this. But this is a huge emergency situation, and it should have been all hands on deck. But it's just inexcusable, Minister, when I saw so much flooding around the place, when we had the fire services there, and the key thing that the fire services kept saying to me was, we have nowhere to pump this water because this drain is blocked or that drain is full. We have nowhere for this water to actually be pumped, and we just have to spend the next few days waiting for nature to take its course. I just don't think that that's acceptable in this day and age, that we have seen so many drains and culverts blocked, which wouldn't have made this any better. This was still going to be an issue, but it certainly would have minimised it, it certainly would have mitigated it, and it certainly would have been helpful to a lot of the people who have found themselves flooded in the last week and a lot of businesses that have been destroyed. And the key thing is now that we have to make sure we get this funding, and a lot of the applications are approved already, Minister, which is really helpful. We have to make sure that we get a lot of this funding to people as quickly as possible.
Minister.
Thank you, Senator, for raising this important matter today. I want, on my own and the government's behalf, to express sympathy to the people in North Louth and the Cooley Peninsula who had their houses and businesses flooded last week. Minister McGrath, Minister Humphreys and Minister of State O'Donovan visited some of the affected areas last week to see the first-hand impact of this flood event. The flooding experience in Louth last week was partly a result of heavy rain. Louth County Council's severe weather team was convened to ensure a coordinated response was in place to deal with the ongoing weather problems associated with this heavy rainfall, in particular in the north of the county. The primary focus in the aftermath of the flood event was ensuring public safety by attending to road closures and infrastructure damage within the North Louth area. Since Monday evening, 30th of October, staff and crews of Louth County Council responded to numerous flooding instances throughout the affected areas of the county. The The Fire Service of Louth County Council also attended incidents throughout Monday and Tuesday last, including members of the public being rescued from vehicles which were stranded as a result of flood water. As the floodwaters receded, local authority crews mobilised to remove debris from roads, enabling the transport routes to be reopened as soon as possible. Civil Defence were able to help those isolated as a result of the flooding who required transport to necessary appointments. Extra sandbags continue to be provided in areas where there is a risk of further flooding. A supply of sandbags are available at the designated Louth County Council depots for collection by members of the public. Louth County Council have confirmed that drains are being jetted in affected estates. I would like to pay tribute to the staff of the local authority and other emergency response agencies concerned for their work during this flooding event in very difficult and challenging conditions. Last week, Minister Humphreys announced that she has secured a further €3 million in funding for the humanitarian assistance scheme administered by the Department of Social Protection. This scheme provides support to those living in properties directly affected by flooding following severe weather conditions. The humanitarian assistance scheme prevents hardship by providing income-tested financial support to people whose homes are damaged from flooding and severe weather events and who are unable to meet costs for essential needs, household items and structural repair. Last week, the Minister for Enterprise, Simon Coveney, TD, extended the two previously approved emergency business flooding schemes for small businesses, sports clubs, community and voluntary organisations who are unable to secure flood insurance and affected by recent flooding in Louth in the period from the 24th of October to the 5th of November. Under these schemes, emergency humanitarian contributions may be made available towards the cost of returning business premises and community and voluntary and sporting bodies to their pre-flood condition, including the replacement of flooding fixtures and fittings and damaged stock. The response to last week's flood event in North Louth demonstrates the importance of the government's framework for major emergency management. This underpins coordination of response to all emergencies in Ireland, including flooding. Through that framework, the Department of Housing is the lead government department with national responsibility for coordinating the response to severe weather emergencies, including flooding. Local authorities are designated as lead agency for response to flooding events within their administrative areas and for ensuring that effective arrangements are put in place to receive and respond to public service weather warnings issued by Met. As the clean-up from the event continues, the OPW and the County Council are working to progress flood relief schemes to protect at-risk properties in North Louth and the Cooney Peninsula. Drone footage was captured last Friday and other surveying has been organised. The OPW and the Council are meeting on Thursday this week to assess the flood mechanisms and damages from the event, which will also help to inform the proposed flood relief scheme for Carlingford and Greenore. A flood relief scheme for Carlingford and Greenore is supported by the Government's €1.3 billion plan for flood relief through the National Development Plan. This funding has allowed government since 2018 to treble to 100 the number of major flood relief schemes at design, planning and construction. In conclusion, again, I want to sympathise with the people whose homes and businesses were affected by last week's floods and ensure them and the House of the Government support during their recovery and to protect these communities from similar events in the future.
Thanks, Minister.
Thanks, Minister. And just to be brief about it, take Dundalk, for example, where the same level of flooding was nowhere near if you went north of the Ballymac roundabout last week, it was like a bomb had hit the Cooley Peninsula. It was that terrible compared to other parts of County Louth. But when you went into parts of Dundalk, like Clunenda and Bayside in particular, they were badly flooded because there is a problem there with the drainage system. This has been a reoccurring problem over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And I think it's now time that people got some proper answers from the local authority to say, if this has consistently happened over the last decade, what are we doing now to make it stop? And I really hope the OPW will be able to really push that point home in their engagement with Louth County Council. And the same goes for the Cooley Peninsula, where a lot of the flooding was flash flooding off the mountains. A lot of it was a result of rivers not being desilted or rivers not being maintained. They burst their banks and they destroyed homes. So that type of proper maintenance really needs to happen, and it's not it's simply inexcusable that it isn't done by the local authority regularly throughout the year.
Senator McGahon, Minister.
Senator, the flooding events in North Louth and Cooney Peninsula last week as a result of heavy rainfall on saturated grounds show the importance of the OPW's planned programme to managing Ireland's flood risk. The completion of 53 flood relief schemes is already protecting 12,000 properties from flooding and avoiding damages of some €2 billion. The 2018 OPW risk management plans was evidence from the largest study of flood risk ever taken by the state through the Catchment Flood Risk Assessment and Management Programme. The 2018 flood risk management plans provide the proactive and planned approach to managing flood risk, and all flood relief schemes are built to be adaptable to the increased risk from climate change. The €1.3 billion available through the National Development Plan has allowed a trebling since 2018 in schemes at design and construction to some 100 schemes. Today, the OPW has work completed or underway to manage the flood risk to 80% of the at-risk properties nationwide. The Government has acted swiftly last week to put in place the support to those homes and businesses affected by flooding events in Louth and other locations. And again, I want to express my sympathies to those adversely impacted by them. Thank you.
Minister, thank you very much. And